everybody. Happy new week. I hope you're doing amazing. I have one of my authors has been in our community now 5 years. I was just looking at my my sign there, Suzi, celebrating 11 years, and you've been part of this journey with us for the last 5. So welcome.
Well, I met you in 2018, so
That's
it's
right.
6 actually.
Nearly 6, so more like literally half of the journey of what Ultimate for the Author has been all about. Yeah. And congratulations, today we're catching up together to talk about Suzi's 3rd book. That's just so close to print. Do you want to like quickly just show that awesome cover, the Dragon's Warning? It's a part of a trilogy, you guys, that Suzi is writing about. So what I'm going to do before we get stuck into all the conversation, I'm going to give you Suzi's official introduction, and then I'm going to share some of her covers. So Susanna Hammond is a remedial bodywork specialist in Sydney's Inner West. Her book, The Body Connection, an analog reboot for digital times, is an Amazon bestseller in the women's health category. A practicing, fascinating, often uproaringly funny account of the daily hazards and health challenges of modern life and why common sense still rocks when it comes to well-being and working with chronic conditions, especially in our digital age where everyone's an instant expert and a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing. Her Urban Yarn series, which is what we're talking about today, is a junior fiction trilogy of ripping yarns written under the name Suzi Hammond. The Unicorns Next Door. Do you want to show that one, Suzi?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep, that's the first one in the trilogy, you guys. The Dragon's Warning, which we showed you earlier, and I'm going to show you in a moment, The Return of the Phoenix, which will be coming out in 2025, will take your tween on a wild and magical ride through an environmental fantasy land designed to make reading accessible and fun for the screen generation. Isn't that true, Suzi? Let me give these guys a little bit of a look of your books. So this was Suzi's first book, you guys, The Body Connection. An analog reboot for digital time. So that's a little bit of a close-up version. I'll let you know where you can get access to them a little bit later in the interview. Obviously, Suzi just showed us the Unicorns Next Door, and then, of course, the Dragon's Warning. And here's an image that's going to be on the final of the trilogy, Phoenix, which is absolutely gorgeous. I love all those. You know, so what's the let me ask you, Suzi, what's the idea of just using the heads on the covers?
Well, they're the pivotal characters, right? And to get when you're publishing a trilogy, you need some link between all the books. So, you know, the fonts are linking, everything is together, but also it's to make it more striking on the
I can see.
It's to make it more striking on the shelf, you know, and to make it instantly communicate something. They're all pretty dramatic covers. And when I looked around in the bookstores, you know, they were very, very different. The approach that I've used is very different to what's being used at the moment. So they really do stand out.
I love it. Beautiful.
So I was lucky to find them. Those
there's very striking images. You know, it makes you curious. It's like fantasy, right? It does have that fantasy that you are writing about in there.
And they're relatable too, you know, they're quite relatable. Even the dragon looks directly at you, you know. I love it.
I think you've had a lot of fun writing these because I've never seen you so excited talking about something, you know, which is, so tell us a little bit about, you know, the second in the trilogy, which is soon to be released. How does that connect to the first one? Does it, you know, where does it take the reader?
Okay, so in the first one, this is all set in Australian suburbia. It's set in one of those, you know, modern cities, suburbs, in fact, a bit like the one I live in, where people are mowing down all the old houses and they're building these white mansions, you know, these big blobs.
Yes.
And with big energy footprints and everything. And in the process of doing that, they mow down all the wildlife to build them and the wildlife habitat. Now, the old lady lives right in the middle of all of this building and wildlife habitat destruction. And the people move in next door, and there's a young girl and her brother, and they discover the old lady. The girl takes an injured magpie in there, and she discovers the old lady's got a bit of a wildlife hospital going on, and it's about the friendship that they form, and how the brother is pulled into the whole story,
Yes.
and how the two kids discover that not only does this woman have a wildlife corridor, but she's got all these mythicals living there.
Yes.
And the unicorns are some of the mythicals living there, but she's also got a giant baby phoenix that she's rescued.
Yes.
And she's got an amphisbaena, which is a two-headed snake hanging out in the pond with the frogs and the goldfish and stuff. And so the story is around how all these developers are trying to push her out of her house, and how the kids and the old lady defeat the developers. So the next book is it's somebody has been stealing dragon eggs. And they discover this when one morning the kids are staying at the old lady's place, and there's suddenly all these baby dragons flying all over the house, setting fire to the magazine racks and the table and various things, you know. So, and they have to go into the realms, which is into another world, which the old lady has briefly discussed in book one, but now they have to go there, and it's not a benign place. It's a bit dangerous.
Yes.
In fact, it's potentially a lot dangerous because there's all these creatures in there, but the ground, when the realms are upset about something, the ground starts shifting and bucking and carrying on. So it's a bit like the planet that we live on, is that nobody thinks about how the planet is weeping or bucking or complaining or any of that. But this happens also in the realms. So it's, you know, I like to think of it as an environmental fantasy, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got that message. I don't beat people over the head with it. It's quite subtle, but it's got that message in it as well. But all the books will have that. The third one is going to be a corker.
What is it going to be?
A corker.
A corker. I love it. I love it. Well, I love how you utilized what you feel is your life about, but brought in that fantasy and the stories throughout it. I don't think we ever write too far off how we see the world or what we experience.
Exactly. Write what you know.
Write what you know, right?
Write what you know.
What was your strategy for, how long did it take for each book for it to be written, or what kind of strategy did you use writing these books, which are obviously fiction, with a little bit of what you know about kind of the world and you and the environment, versus obviously the first book, which was nonfiction?
Gosh, no, look, they're poles apart. They're absolutely poles apart. I guess my writing training as a reporter and also as a copywriter in advertising and as a filmmaker taught me, or health filmmaker, you taught me to write in various different styles.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm comfortable with that. I can switch styles.
Nice.
You could give me a brief and I will switch to a style that suits where it needs to go. So the body connection I wrote to make to simplify some quite complex information, and to make people laugh at themselves. And it's full of factual information that even 5 years later, it's still fresh, it's still new, it's still out there, and it's still common sense. So but the fiction, when I started to write that, I thought, well, what is the problem with kids reading? Why are they not reading? And it's because everything is so instantly available, they don't have to put any effort into it, right? And so I tried to take the effort out of it, so that the book both of the books rip along. They're very pictorial. You can see it. It's the whole point of it is like having the movie in your head.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I love
So
it.
it's very descriptive. It's very you can see the pictures. I've deliberately written it so that the kids can see the pictures in it.
Yeah.
And oh dear. Here we go. These dogs feature in it as well. Oh yeah. They're fighting over biscuits now. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun because it stretched me to use language that people have almost forgotten. You know, the kids have simplified their language so that the English that they use is quite poor. You know, there's a poverty to it. It's everything is get and went and did, you know, and instead of words that describe what people are actually doing. And so I've managed to do that without using adjectives and adverbs, which is also another big no-no writing fiction, as you may know. Yeah. And that's why they rip along. Short sentences, the same as the body connection too, and the occasional long one. You know, make it easy to read.
I love that.
Easy on the eye, yeah. And that's a principle over all the books. But with fiction, it's quite a different ballgame. Oh, golly. Look, probably if I was to squash all the time together, maybe 6 or 7 months for each book. But you know, life gets in the way and all those things, so they were stretched out. It took me a couple of years to actually get the unicorns published. The Dragon's Warning I was hoping to finish last year, and things got in the way. So that's I guess a couple of years from start to finish. But I am hoping that the next one, because I've already got the backstory, I've already written that. So the next one in the trilogy, I'm hoping to have out next Christmas. So that'll be a shorter process. And also bear in mind, you know, I've not written a trilogy before. I wrote a trilogy because it's on my bucket list to do it.
I love it. Well, I think it's a wonderful way to connect, because there's so much more you want to share through this in this sense. I mean, I know I've written lots of books, and one of them from a trilogy became now 4 books. And I think it's good to expand on the story. Who knows? There might be more to it, you know, as you go through. You know, I'd love to see them in like a little box set, you know, how people create a little box for them. I reckon Nick could design something like that for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's look, I was thinking the other day, well, when I get book 3 written, what do I do then?
Well, that's right. But it'll become obvious. I think we can't see too far ahead. You know, you kind of have these things you want to complete, and I love when people are committed to completion of the projects before committing to too many more. Like, I think, and you've done that really well. You've been very consistent over the last 5-6 years. As we said, we've known each other. You've chipped away. This has been your passion. It's partly you wrote these also as a legacy and for your grandchildren, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I've dedicated the body connection to the kids. I mean, they're going to have to be quite a bit older to read it.
Read them.
But the unicorns and the Urban Yarns series is definitely for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've dedicated the Dragon's Warning to my son, who's 37, and he's got to read these things to his kids. So
exactly.
I thought that it'd be good for them to see his name at the front.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I always am dedicating all my books to family or kids or, just people, because it is very much a legacy building. I mean, with the two children that are the characters in the books, you said there was a boy and a girl?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they, do you have a boy and a girl grandchildren? Is that?
Yeah, well, I've got 3 grandchildren, an older girl and a younger brother and a very young sister.
Yes.
And I have to say that I think they're growing into their roles.
Really?
When I wrote the unicorn, when I started writing that, Bastian was only, I don't know, 2 or something. Yeah. And he hadn't turned into the brother in the book at that point. But what I did was I wrote it from what I know about kids and siblings and all of that. So he's turning into that character now.
Wow.
You know, the fiction is becoming reality. Yes.
Isn't that so interesting though? I feel like even all those movies we used to watch as fiction 20, 30 years ago, that's all just real.
Oh, yeah.
And it has to come from somewhere, that imagination, that vision for it. Maybe dragons won't be a reality, but some of the personalities, or as you say, the metaphor behind everything, or the message that you want to share with as well, is very much the real world.
And also, the intergenerational friendship between this mysterious old woman and her very mysterious dogs, shape-shifting dogs, and the fact that she's, rearing a baby phoenix in the back garden, that sort of thing, which is a bit inconvenient sometimes because it's hard to keep it away from the neighbors. And it's, and the friendship between the young girl and the old lady, I think, is paramount, and how her brother comes to fit in with that as well. That he initially thinks she's a bit of a daffy old bat, but it turns out she isn't.
Yeah. I love that. So how was the process? You've been through publishing now a few times. How did you find, was it different for you each time you did it, or what? Tell me a little bit about your experience.
Oh, okay. Well, the first time was sort of terrifying, really. I mean, even after years of writing, every writing project is a new baby, and all babies are not the same, as you know. No. And so I just I was terrified at first. I remember sending you guys the chapter breakdowns in, I think, January of 2019, and just hanging by the phone waiting for somebody to say, yeah, that's probably going to work. Yeah. And I think everybody was on holidays then.
Yeah.
And I was on a trip to pick up my oldest dog rather now, and in 47-degree heat through to Victoria. But I've got the phone jammed to my ear waiting to hear if this is going to be a go. And then I wrote, it was made a lot easier by writing to the chapter breakdown plan.
Yes.
That you've got. It actually forced me as a short form writer, or as a video writer or a film writer. It forced me to, not forced, is that the right word? I mean, it enabled me to work to a different discipline. And as I said before, I'm a bit of a chameleon in that regard. I can learn new disciplines in writing and work to them.
Yeah.
So that was that one. And the fiction one, I was just thrilled that Ultimate 48 Hour also were open to doing fiction suddenly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I just basically let it rip.
Yeah.
I didn't do any kind of a plan. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going to happen chapter by chapter.
I love that. Yeah.
So, because there's two kinds of writers, apparently. There's a plotter and
Yes.
a pantser. So the plotters are the ones, that do the picture
whole
cards and the breakdown, which is what I did with the first one. And the pantsers are the people who fly by the seat of their pants.
Yeah.
And with fiction, that's in the fiction series, that's what I did.
That's awesome. I think with fiction, I mean, you might want to sometimes plan a little bit of it, but I think as you write, you give birth to different ideas, and
Well, I've got a more or less overview, right?
Yeah.
Like even, and for the third one, I've got an overview, but I've got no idea how this is going to go down. But the thing is that I listen to my characters.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm so batty, really, is that I'm always talking to my invisible friends.
I love it. But you've got a beautiful imagination, and from what I've heard from your editors and my team, is reading, they always say Suzi's such an amazing writer, like she brings the humor in and all that. So I think, you've had a lot of experiences that they start to filter in through your writing.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I hope so.
Absolutely.
But look, I'm not as afraid writing these for some reason, even though I've never written a junior fiction fantasy trilogy before. And I've invented my own genre, the environmental fantasy.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
What makes it different, do you think?
Sorry?
What makes it different that you're not so worried about these ones?
I don't know. I'm older and more foolhardy, I suppose. I don't know. I just these are books that wanted to be written.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I say I'm talking and listening to my characters, I really am.
Yeah.
And also, COVID kind of what would you say? It brought a lot of things together. It sort of concentrated the mind a bit,
Yep.
When I mean, everybody's forgotten it now, but we're all afraid we were going to end up dying. And my sister in New York was 2 blocks from the refrigerator morgues.
Yes.
Were parked on the street, And so I decided that I should get a wriggle on.
I love that. And we spent a lot of time online on our Friday night drinks. Meetings still happen, 4.5 years on, I think. Still catch up, and I've kind of seen and have been brought a bit into your life, and I know what your house and property and your beautiful outside area looks like. So I can kind of almost picture the things that happen through the books in what's happening around you. And I think it also that period allowed us to tap into like that creativity, because we could have the space and the time to have a lot of thinking and just in one place.
Well, I spent a lot of time in my garden, and you've seen the pictures of my garden, and it's very leafy.
I love it.
And it's wild, and I've got this ancient Venetian glass sculpture that my mother bought, I don't know, 30 years ago, that I've ended up with, as and it's in a crate down the back, and that in the shed, and that became the hatchling.
Yes.
That became the phoenix is looks like a giant glass bantam with its head on backwards. It's the most god-awful thing.
Yeah.
And the merino glass people really double-crossed my mother. But so anyway, I've ended up with it. And now it has gone into the book as this hatchling. So all those months when we were in lockdown, and I'm sitting here and thinking, there's got to be something I can do to amuse myself. That's what I did.
I love it. You know what you should do, perhaps, towards the back of the third book, maybe tell a little bit of the real life story of the inspirations and put a few photos of your garden and your place. Because when when Zara wrote Snowflake Surprise earlier this year, it was inspired by our Japanese trip. It was half fiction, it was half real life, right?
Yeah.
And so when we finished the book in the afterword, we said this was half fiction, half real life, and here are the photos of people recognized in the stories of the situations that happened. So I think perhaps maybe in the afterword only, put a few little pictures, because I know you've shared them on socials, and it would be wonderful for people to connect all of that.
And my shape-shifting dogs,
Yeah, absolutely. And your dogs, absolutely.
Everybody knows dogs shape-shift.
Yeah, totally. Let me share where people can get access to at least the first in the trilogy of the urban yarns. The second one is due to be released very, very soon, you guys. But Suzi has a couple of websites. This is the first one, which is her main website, islandsofbliss.com.au. And there is a books and MP3s page. You can learn a lot of wonderful advice, and you can download some MP3s. She's got a few different things that are happening here. So look through the website there. There's the two books, the first book and the Unicorns Next Door. But then there's a dedicated website also, theunicornsnextdoor.com.au, which will have the Dragon's Warning and the Phoenix book coming up there very, very soon. But that's a separate one if you guys want to access that.
Yeah, the dragons will be out in time for Christmas. I mean, I'm chewing my nails. And so November.
Okay. Yeah. A month away, really.
Yeah.
No,
that's I'm very excited about it. It's just his picture.
It's just striking. I just absolutely love the covers.
It's just stunning, isn't it?
Yeah. And even the Phoenix photo, once that becomes a cover, so wonderful. I love it. I can see there Lindy shared those couple of links there, so people can go ahead and click and have a bit of a read as to who you are. And I'm super proud of you. And I've been watching this journey because I've had the chance to catch up with you regularly, and it's been a lot of fun. I can see you're having fun doing it. So, congratulations. Any last words that you'd like to share with people watching?
Well, I just have to say that I have just published my first piece on Substack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did it yesterday.
Wow. Well,
I know.
I
know. I was reading somebody that says, it's like that Gwen Stefani song, What You're Waiting For.
Yeah.
And this other writer was saying, get off your butt and do it. And so I contacted her and I said, right, I'm doing it. I'll let you know when it's up. And she wrote back to me. She's quite famous.
Yeah.
And she wrote back to me and said, great, this is when I write these kind of articles, this is what I hope for. So when I got it up on Substack, after battling the dragons, there's dragons everywhere of technology.
Yes.
Right. I got it up on Substack yesterday, and she's ticked me and subscribed to me.
Woo! I love it. Congratulations.
So anyway, that's up on Substack. It's under the name of Suzi Hammond on Substack. So please, everybody go in and like it. And
yes, I'll go up for sure.
There will be more pieces to come. So writing is fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. I know people are terrified by it, but truly when you can get enough practice under your belt so that you can think, I'll just get up and write something today.
Yeah.
Without being terrified or dragging yourself to the desk. That's what you're hoping for, yeah?
Yeah, and the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Absolutely.
That's what I got
Absolutely.
told by editors as I was writing more and more books. Like, oh, your writing is improving, because obviously English was never my first language.
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes easier and a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much, Susie. I wish you
Thank you for having me.
best. Yes, and we'll catch up again once the third one's nearly out as well.
Lovely.
But guys, go out there and go smash it out. Bye.